Hey everyone, we're so thankful and happy that you've joined us today on a new episode on the Living Life Naturally podcast. And of course, I'm Lynn Wadsworth, your host, and so happy that you're going to join in this conversation because it's a very important piece of a puzzle for many people. And I just wanted to remind you that if you have any questions or concerns, or you need some help in your journey, to a healthier lifestyle, I would love to chat. I will put that link in the show notes below and hope to have a chance to talk to you. But today we're going to talk with Michele Stamn. She has been helping people achieve their wellness goals for over 30 years as a physical therapist, and now does the same thing as the founder of Wellness Empowered Plant-Based Health Coaching. She helps her clients tap into the transformative power of plant-based eating to change their lives in ways they've never dreamed possible. And she does it in a doable, delicious, and fun way. So I love that. Welcome to the podcast, Michele.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. I'm so excited to be here with you and your listeners today.
Thanks. So I want to ask first where you're joining us from.
I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Not the place
Wow.
people would think of as the plant-based capital of the world by any means, home of beer, brats, and cheese, but
Cheese. Yeah.
yep, I
I
can eat
ha-
plant-based even here.
yeah. Well, we're kind of behind the times here in Florida. It can be very hard to find what I want as a plant-based eater. And so we'll talk about some of the pitfalls as we go along today. But first of all, I really want to know what made you start on your journey working as a plant-based health coach.
Well, great opening question. Thanks, Lynn. So I was learning for years and years about a plant-based diet, just a personal curiosity, making some changes in my own eating. But as I was learning the incredible benefits, health benefits of a plant-based diet. And the same time, in the other side of my world, as a physical therapist, I was working with patients who had devastating illnesses. Now, I know when people think of a physical therapist or PT, they tend to think of somebody who helps them when they sprain their ankle or with back pain, and not to minimize those things. But that wasn't the kind of PT I mostly did. I mostly worked with people in rehab settings, people who had had a stroke or a heart attack or who had lost a limb to diabetes. So really
Mm.
big catastrophic things. And the whole time I'm working with them, I'm learning about a plant-based diet and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, had I met you 5 years ago, maybe you wouldn't even have to be here. Maybe we could have prevented your stroke, prevented your heart attack, reversed your diabetes if you had just changed what you ate. And I really got on this mission. I was like, I have to figure out how to find the people I was helping in these nursing home and rehab settings and meet them 5 years earlier and help them make that transition to eating plant-based so they could lower their cholesterol, lower their blood pressure, and not have those catastrophic things happen to them. So that was really what was so motivating to me.
And so are you plant-based but still eating meat, or are you plant-based as a vegetarian?
So I'm 100% plant-based. And I know the word plant-based means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I suppose at its foundation, it kind of means foundation, like your base of your diet is plants, is what plant-based, I think, means to a lot of people. But I know also some people think of it as 100% plant-based, and that's how I eat. So I don't eat any meat, I don't eat any dairy, I don't eat any eggs. So I've heard it said nothing with a mother or a face. So that's what I eat and don't eat, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way I eat, although I do occasionally eat salmon. Um,
Okay.
so the hardest part, and it's a question I get asked a lot, is how, when you're eating that way and you're 100% plant-based, how do you deal with the um, protein? Because I know how important protein is in our lives, and I know that we could spend a lot of time eating nuts and seeds, but they can be quite fattening as well. So how does that work for you? What have you found when you're guiding your clients in this way?
Yeah, I think you have to be intentional for sure how you eat, but I also don't think it needs to be super complicated. I think people think when you eat a vegetarian or a vegan diet, a lot of math is involved. And I don't think that's
Oh,
true. I think if you eat a wide variety of plants, you'll tick the boxes on most nutrition needs, including protein, because really all plants have protein. So even we all think of, iceberg lettuce as sort of that useless vegetable. And I'm not advocating that we need to eat tons and tons of iceberg lettuce, but even iceberg lettuce has protein. So of course, Popeye's famous spinach has protein. Greens really are a great source of protein. And beans are another great source of protein, and those are both much lower in calories and fat than nuts and seeds, although I love me some good nuts and seeds as well.
yeah.
So really thinking about those kinds of things. And then, of course, the different soy foods like tempeh and tofu and that kind of thing is a great source of protein. I don't think the average person needs to worry a ton about protein on a plant-based diet, because I really think if you eat a diverse diet, you'll get what you need. But as we get older, we do need to be a little more aware our protein needs increase. So for some of my patients who are older, I'll encourage them to maybe pick soy milk over almond milk or something because it has more protein. So those are the kind of, I try and keep these recommendations simple. So, because like you said in the beginning, I try and make plant-based eating doable. So I don't want to make it too complicated for people either.
And I know a lot of people are familiar because it was a buzzword years ago in the clean eating arena. So I think at one point, this type of eating would even have been labeled a clean eating diet. And I think that it's been kind of switched out a little bit more now for using a plant-based diet instead, correct?
Yeah, and I think so like I said, plant-based isn't super well defined. I think different people use that term in different ways. And it's part of why I call myself a plant-based health coach, because I want to be approachable for different people coming from different directions. But other words that people might be familiar with in your audience is whole food plant-based. And that really defines itself. If
Mm.
somebody is eating whole food plant-based, they're eating whole foods, no processed foods whatsoever, and they're all plant-based. But then another term your listeners have probably heard is vegan. And somebody who's eating a vegan diet doesn't eat any animal foods whatsoever. And in fact, they often tend not to even use any animal food products in their life. So maybe not wearing a leather belt, for example. Um, if you're eating, the term vegan can also, though, include a lot of processed foods. So like Diet Coke
Mm.
and Oreos are vegan, but I don't think anybody's going to argue that those are healthy things. So there's a whole, in the plant-based world, there's just a whole spread of different healthiness of the foods you can
Mm.
eat, very processed, and then the whole food organic foods that you're picking from your garden, those would be the best. So there's a huge range, just like there is in a regular, you know, omnivore diet where people are eating everything. You can eat that a very healthy way, or you can eat it in a very processed way.
Mm.
So same thing applies. I'm not sure if that answers your
Mm.
question, but
Yeah. So how many women do you or have you worked with who are like our midlife 40 plus women? Maybe they're going into perimenopause, maybe they skipped that, maybe they had a hysterectomy, whatever. But when we get into that midlife phase of our lives, I think people tend to tune in a little bit more to what they're eating because a lot of their responsibilities are off to college.
yeah.
Um, so, how have you seen the plant-based diet affect the health of us midlifers?
Oh my gosh, in so many amazing ways. I think the first thing that, as you ask the question about perimenopausal women and stuff, people think about hormones, right? Well, the truth is, yeah, our bodies make hormones as people, but animals make hormones too, have hormones in their bodies as well. So if you're eating meat, eggs, or dairy, you're eating the hormones from those animals. And the great thing about a plant-based diet is once you remove all those animal foods and the hormones that come along with them, if you remove those from your diet, then your body can find its own hormonal balance again. And I have seen this time and time again in women who are premenopausal, who are still getting their periods, because I'm sure you have some of those people listening. Women who, there was one woman I worked with and she was in her mid 40s. So I figure she's had her period for 30 years now. And she said to me, she's like, I felt like I've been lied to my entire life. I was told that having a migraine every month was just how it has to go. And once she went plant-based, after 30 years of having a migraine every single month, they stopped. And she has not had a migraine since. Somebody I'm working with right now, she's, again, still gets her period, still has her kids at home. But she just recently overheard her teenage son saying, like, yeah, mom's not so crabby anymore. And she acknowledges that she's really struggled with her emotions during that PMS time. And now that she's eating plant-based, totally leveled out, feels good no matter what week of the month it is. But then you talk about women who are actually going through menopause. And I think that one of the kind of telltale symptoms of menopause is the hot flashes, right? And I have worked with women who just are constantly fanning themselves and then they go plant-based and it stops. Like it really is amazing. Sometimes I feel like it's just like a fairy tale, but it's not, because I see it happen over and over and over again, that it really can make a difference in hormones. And it changes a lot of other things as well, which I'm happy to talk with you about as well.
So say you've got somebody that you're transitioning into a plant-based diet and they've come from an omnivore background, but they want to try this whole way and do it and see what it does for them. How do you start people off? Because I'm sure it's like anything else, unless like I had to do this very quickly because I was having daily migraines. And it was like I had to totally transform my life. But for most people, if I'm coaching with them, I take them a step at a time. So how do you work with your clients? Because it can be very, people can think, oh my gosh, plant-based, I'd never be able to do it. How could I do that? So how do you work with them in that way?
I really meet them where they're at. I like to say we approach plant-based eating in all kinds of different ways, just like we approach a swimming pool in all kinds of different ways. So, you know, my friend might want to cannonball into the swimming pool, and then I might have another friend who likes to tiptoe into the shallow end. And either way, they both are getting wet, right? They're both getting into the pool. So it's the same thing with plant-based eating. And I find, Lynn, that people like you who are having some really big health problems, the migraines, or maybe they had that doctor's appointment last week where the doctor was like, you know, I'm going to see you again in 3 months. And if you haven't improved your cholesterol and lost some weight and lowered your blood pressure, you're going to go on a lot of medications. So those kinds of people, or maybe somebody literally had a heart attack last week, those kind of people tend to be the cannonballers who really want to go in all in at once. And they're really motivated. So it's easy to help them do that. Then I definitely have some people that I help in the way you talk about, of just making one small change at a time. I just think everybody comes at this with a different goal and they bring all of their humanness with it. So some people are ready to go all in and some people really need that encouragement and just make one change at a time. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. It works both ways. So if somebody's making one small change at a time, I like that process a lot too, because then they're like, oh, I actually do like this food. Oh, there is actually stuff I can eat. Oh, I'm actually sleeping better. And then that progress, both in liking the food and the positive changes they're seeing in their body, that really fuels them to make the next change and the next change and the next change. So I just think it's really individual depending on all of that, what's going on for them.
So you mentioned sleep. So could you give our audience an idea of what some of the other benefits are of going to a plant-based diet?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. And I mentioned some of these with like that doctor's appointment. So that is a lot of the people who come to me. They have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, their A1C is high and going in the wrong direction. And a plant-based diet can affect those things in remarkable ways. I've had clients who have lowered their cholesterol by 70 points in 6 weeks. I
Wow.
just, it's amazing just by changing what they eat because there's no cholesterol in plant foods. There's cholesterol in all animal foods other than egg whites and honey, but there's no cholesterol in plant foods. So if you remove the foods with cholesterol and then you eat foods that have no cholesterol, plus they have fiber, which helps remove cholesterol from your body, like a lot of people make astounding progress with their cholesterol numbers when they go on a plant-based diet. Blood pressure too, sometimes that comes down. I've even worked with women in their 80s and their blood pressure goes from high to normal in 3 months. It's unbelievable. People who have had pre-diabetes reversed that. And most people go from pre-diabetes to diabetes, right? These women have gone from pre-diabetes back to normal, where their A1C is now in the normal range. And I haven't had the privilege of working with I am working with two people right now who have diabetes and their doctor's appointments are coming up, but I can't yet say that they've reversed their diabetes, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going on in their bodies just from how they're feeling and their glucose readings and stuff. So, probably the first change I see in most people is they go to the bathroom every single day. Women who have been constipated for decades, that goes away. Acid reflux, I've worked with a lot of people who've come off their acid reflux medications. Sleep improves, energy improves, brain fog goes away. And the one that probably everybody's wondering about, yes, a lot of people lose weight when they go on a plant-based diet as well. So yeah, it's really, it makes my job so fun because I'm like, so every session I'm like, so what's going good this week? And there's always something to talk about. So
yeah, I can definitely attest to when I changed my diet so radically. I'd got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, plus the migraines, and my weight was still a lot more than it needed to be. So all of those things just kind of went away. And that's why I really can advocate for this lifestyle. As I've aged, some of these have crept back because they are hereditary, but I'm noticing when they've crept back to being higher, I've maybe slipped off and cheated in some way. So when I get right back down to it, I keep a good steady blood pressure. My cholesterol is good. I still, there's always a mixture there of like 5 to 10 pounds that, it can go on or it can come off. And especially if you've been on vacation or you've had Christmas, although I did well at Christmas, but yeah, and I mean, it's just all coming back to, but how does your body feel? I know if I've got those few extra pounds, even 5 pounds, I don't feel so good. My body feels its best at the weight that I now know it feels best at.
Right. And I love what you said there because none of us are perfect, right? We're all human. So if we do slip up a little bit, like you were talking about, if the holidays, if vacation, and we're not feeling so good, we know how to make those changes again to feel better. And that's really my whole business is called Wellness Empowered, because what I want people to know is you are empowered. You can take your health into your own hands. And I'm not saying doctors are bad or something like that, but I want people to know you really can change the trajectory of your health. You really don't have to go on all these medications. You can change how you're feeling and your health just by changing what you eat. So that's why I called it that. So it just reminded me of that when you were saying that story.
So do you have some specific hurdles that people come up against as they're making this changeover?
Yes, yes. It's not, you don't suggest to somebody to go on a plant-based diet and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. There's all kinds of hurdles that get in the way. One of the biggest hurdles is ourselves, right? Our own mindset can really get in the way for us.
Right.
And I think the first one there is people really struggle to believe in themselves, believe they can make such a big change in their life, or believe that it's going to work for them. They might hear a podcast like this and think, oh, sure, Michele talked about all these great changes people made, but it's probably not going to work for me. So I think that's the first hurdle for most people, is just believing in themselves and believing that this can work for them. And then a few other mindset things get in our way. We allow ourselves to get overwhelmed. I mean, I've been there on a plant-based
Mm.
diet and a lot of other things, but when we're overwhelmed, we can't move forward. So we have to kind of choose to turn that turn that off, and just make one change, even one small change. We can all do that. Or then there's the perfectionists in the world who think, well, if I can't do it perfect, if I can't be 100% whole food plant-based tomorrow, then I won't even try. Well, I don't think that's a great idea either. I'm a big believer in progress over perfection. And like we talked about earlier, like seeing how is that change? How did that change feel in your body? Okay, maybe that motivates the next change. So I think the first set of hurdles really are in our own head. And then there's the second set of hurdles, which has to do more with the other people in our lives,
Mm.
either the people who don't believe in us or the people who live with us who don't want to eat plant-based, that kind of thing. Or I think we worry about like, oh, that wedding I've got coming up in a couple weeks, or what am I going to eat on vacation? And real succinctly, all of those things can be dealt with. And I don't want to make it sound easy peasy, because it's not. And this is what I spend weeks and weeks counseling people on it, or coaching people on in our sessions. But I think really one of the best things to do is communicate. Like, people aren't going to know that you're eating a different way if you don't tell them. So they can't support you if you don't tell them, or the restaurant can't provide a food option for you if you don't communicate with them. So really communicating and then planning ahead are the two biggest things to do with. And by planning ahead, I mean, if you're going out to eat, check the menu online ahead of time. Or if you're going to a party and you know there's probably not going to be anything there for you to eat, then bring something, a dish to pass that you know you can eat. So those are kind of like I said, the hurdles of us getting in our own way, and then hurdles of other people getting in our way.
Mm.
And then I think just the food. People think, well, yeah, this sounds great, but I don't even know what I would eat. Like, what would I even eat for dinner tonight? And there, I think really the best thing to do is start where you're at. So, I'm pretty sure, unless you have a peanut allergy, everybody's had a PB&J with an apple at one time or another. And that might not be like the best plant-based meal, but it's a one that we've all eaten and we can all wrap our heads around. Pasta with marinara sauce, that's vegan. And then you can make some simple swaps too. If you're used to pouring milk on your cereal or oatmeal in the morning, just try an oat milk or a soy milk and see what that's like. It's not going to change too much, but it allows you to take those first steps.
Mm.
So I think that really is a great way for somebody who's wants to try it, but is just feeling so overwhelmed.
Yeah, I totally get that. So where do you put in so you mentioned pasta. Do you use regular white pasta, or do you recommend switching to a brown pasta, or maybe a quinoa pasta or something different?
Yeah, again, there, I think everybody's at a different place. So if somebody just can't wrap their mind around not having their white pasta covered in a cheese sauce, I might let them keep that. I don't let them, but just not mention the white pasta at first. Let's get you eating a nice vegan cheese sauce made with cashews and nutritional yeast and stuff over your regular pasta. Make that switch, get you feeling better, and then they're ready for the next change. And then, yes, I might encourage them to switch to a whole grain pasta, or like you said, a quinoa pasta, lentil pasta, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it just really
Mm.
everybody. I just never want to make so many changes that they're not sustainable, because I'd rather have people not Well, both things are true. I really do encourage everybody at some point to go 100% to see what that feels like in your body, because they're not going to know what that feels like unless you try it, right? But at the second point, I guess, of what I was going to say is I don't want to make so many changes so fast that people throw in the towel. So I really want every change they make to be sustainable for them, which is why, like I said, some people tiptoe into the pool, and that's the best way for them to go.
Yeah. And do you supply your clients with recipes to try?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some are ones that I've created, but I'm not really a recipe creator myself. I mean, I do over time. I think we all do. We kind of know what works in our kitchens. But so yes, I share some of my own recipes with them, but I also point them to my favorite cookbooks and my favorite recipe websites. And I've got, a favorite creamy soup recipe that doesn't use any dairy. I'll point them to those kind of things, just which I feel is great to share the work of other vegan and plant-based authors and cook and recipe creators as well. Just kind of my work, I like to, it's helping the individuals I'm working with, but I'm also really motivated to just see this plant-based movement continue to grow as well. So
Yes. Well, how would people find you? Where is the best place that you're at?
yeah, the best place to find me is on my website, which is wellness-empowered.org. I would say don't forget the dash, wellness-empowered.org. And Lynn, you said you'd hook that up in the show notes as
Yes.
well. So if your listeners are hearing this and they're all excited about giving plant-based eating a try, but they're just not quite sure how to go about that, they can book a consult call with me on the Work With Me page of my website. And if they're not ready for that step yet, and they just want to start learning more about plant-based eating, you can sign up for my newsletter there as well. And I am going to be coming out, but by the time this podcast is out, I'm going to have a plant-based roadmap to better health that I'd be able to share with you that really talks step by step through how to eat plant-based. But it's not about just the food. It's not saying like give up meat the first week and dairy the second week. It's really more about some of the stuff we talked about, the mindset and believing in yourself and how to deal with some of those hurdles and stuff. So hopefully your listeners would find that helpful as well.
I really appreciate all of your input here because I live that lifestyle and I love it. But some people that I talk to are just like, I just could never do that. I couldn't give up this or I couldn't give up that. But as you say, it depends what your motivation is. For me, my overarching motivation is for my health. And as I continue on my journey in life, I want to have longevity, like most of us do, but I don't want longevity where I'm stuck in a wheelchair or I can't get up and go out to walk. I want to have that health and energy as I age, and that's really a motivating factor for me.
Exactly. And me too. Like I said, I've worked in the nursing homes and I don't want to land there. And if there's anything I can do to keep myself from landing there, I'm going to do it, which is why I eat this way. But you and your work and me and my work, like we want to keep the other people out of the nursing homes too. We all have things to do in this world and we can't do them if we're sitting in a wheelchair in a nursing home. So yeah, I'm 100% with you on that.
So everyone, I will put all of Michelle's links to her website and her social media, and hope that you'll check her out and take advantage of her offer to have a chat with her. Thank you so much for coming on with me today, Michele. I really appreciate it.
Oh gosh, thank you so much, Lynn, for having me. It's just been really nice talking to a kindred spirit and talking to your listeners as well. Thank you.
Thank you. You have been listening to the Living Life Naturally podcast, where we're on a mission to inform, inspire, and encourage women to live their best life confidently, joyfully, and freely from what's been holding them back. For show notes and free resources, visit holistic-healthandwellness.com. And I'd be delighted if you'd follow us on socials to connect further. If you enjoyed this show, why not share it with your friends? If you found good value, chances are they will too. And of course, a 5-star review on iTunes is always greatly appreciated, as much as I appreciate you listening. So until next time, live life naturally and joyfully.